Welcome to the channel, folks. Welcome to Moneystream, and another episode here where we've got the CEO and founder of the Gyms Group, Mr. Jim Penman, who is doing wonderful things in the community, which we'll talk about today, and also over 5,000 franchisees now and growing in Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. So we welcome Mr. Jim Penman, and I thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be talking, Jim's going to be talking about the magnificent work he's doing in the mental health space. Not forgetting, of course, humble Jim. I always think of him. He has a PhD in history from La Trobe University. So it's over to you, Jim.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously my PhD in history is why I mow lawns for a living. If I done something like being an engineer or a lawyer or something, I might not have gone that direction. But yeah, it's been great. The whole concept, John, as you know, behind starting gyms was to fund my research. I personally don't spend a lot of money. The first time I ever bought a new car was late last year, and my previous car was worth 10 grand. So I live pretty simple, but any funds I've got go into the research project.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, it's a magnificent cause, and I guess, Jim, I mean, I know of quite a few people, whether it doesn't matter if it's family, friends, or a neighbour who is affected by mental health. So yeah, I think it's a great thing you're doing in the community, and yeah, it's wonderful if we can hear a little bit about the work that you're doing in that space.
It's got particular relevance to areas like drug addiction and so forth, alcoholism, those kind of areas where people tend to think very short term. They tend to think, I'll do something that makes me feel good right now without recognizing that down the track of it, it's going to make me worse and worse, which is, of course, what all these things do. They have an initial boost. The first time you take fentanyl or heroin, you get a real boost. Well, from what I've heard, I've never done it, of course. But then with time, your mood goes down because your brain adapts to it, and then you need more and more of the stuff, even just to feel normal. So what we're doing is looking at mild food restriction in particular, and because my theory suggests that there's something about mild food restriction or equivalence, which is things like chastity in human societies, which change character in a way that makes people more long-term thinking. So what we've been doing with rats in particular is actually giving them mild food restriction. It's only about 25% off what they'd like to eat, and then looking at the changes in their body. Now you're looking at things like the levels of hormones, the cytokines, the proteins, even the microbe. So that's probably unlikely to have such effect there, but also the epigenetics. So if you understand what epigenetics is, a gene basically works by pumping out a protein, mostly something like an RNA molecule of some kind. And what environment does is change the way that genes function. Like it's like a little tap that goes on a gene that either turns it off, like a methyl group gets put on it and just blocks it from acting, or at least acting so much, or you can open it up at the other level. Now, all kinds of character problems that relate to alcohol and drug addiction, there's a certain genetic involvement to it, but mostly it seems to be epigenetic. So what we're trying to do is to work out a way to figure out what these epigenetic changes are and work out a way how to reverse them.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting and very genius. I'd probably use the word genius because I did a little bit of study on the general thing you mentioned, heroin, and I remember in Canterbury, Bankstown area that we studied for 2016. I did a research paper. Almost just under 50% of the welfare recipients in that area were either on some sort of amphetamine, be it heroin, cocaine, or whatever. And every year it was growing, and the government was trying to work out how to control it because they weren't managing these people. So hence, I think what you're doing, in my opinion, is genius, because society needs someone like you to try and help these people.
Well, we think that science has advanced a lot. When I did my PhD back in the 70s, early 80s, we could see there were changes taking place that seemed to be related to food restriction or similar influences, but we didn't know what was doing it. We didn't know what was causing it. It's only since then, since I've been mowing lawns and building my business, that the field of epigenetics has really come to its own. Then you've got areas like CRISPR. Now, you probably heard of CRISPR. It's to do with changing genes. So you can actually change a gene. Like a CRISPR can go in. CRISPR is a sort of like a guiding thing that goes in and says, okay, go to this point in the genome, cut here, change that, insert this. But what you can also use CRISPR, it's like a guided missile to go into the genome and actually can turn off or on specific genes that you're after. There are issues with it right now. One of the problems is the guidance isn't perfect. So what could happen is you go in and change this gene that you want to turn off. And then you go over there and you turn off this other gene that you don't necessarily want to turn off, and that might have other effects. So you've got to be, there are limitations on the technology, but it's getting better and better every day. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And the way they do things, like the way they treated the epidemic, the COVID epidemic, using very new genetic technology, using all these kinds of techniques to work out what we need to do, and then creating targeted systems to make the changes we need.
Yeah, look, it's a very interesting topic, and you know, as I said at the beginning, I'm sure every one of us knows of or heard of or knows someone affected by mental health, and I guess also there's people struggling that are trying to work that are affected by mental health, and they don't have an escape plan.
Yes.
Which
I might say there's things we can do in the short term. One of the issues is, as you know, there's been a tremendous rise in problems with mental health in recent decades, to the extent that they're calling them deaths of despair. And whether a person commits suicide or they drink themselves to death or they die from a drug overdose, they're all very similar in terms of people just not seeing a future. And you've got a problem, particularly with people who aren't university, tertiary educated and so forth, particularly in America, but it's a rising problem here as well. And there's various reasons for that. One of them is that I think the methods of treatment they have for mental illness have got major problems. Now, you read a lot about stuff like Prozac and all those other sorts of things, and there's treatments for schizophrenia and manic depressive disorder. Just finished reading a book called Anatomy of an Epidemic, which actually talks about the way that these treatments actually do have a short-term effect in ameliorating these symptoms, but they make them far, far worse in the long run. What they do is they upset the brain. So it actually, and the brain adjusts. It doesn't like being upset. So they make a change and then put some more of something into the brain, more of a chemical in, and the brain adjusts by turning down the receptors. So you actually need to put more and more of this stuff in. That's how drug addiction actually works. It's that you you do something which gives you a burst of dopamine or something like that, and the brain says, okay, there's too much dopamine coming in, let's ramp it down. And so then normal life doesn't create enough dopamine, so people feel bad. So they say, I need more of this dopamine. So they do more and more stuff to do it. So that what they're doing is they're messing up their brain biochemistry, and that can easily go into things like schizophrenia and so forth in the end, because you're just messing things up worse and worse and worse. I'm actually a very strong believer that you really don't mess with your brain in the first place. I think I've seen what Browning did to my mother, and it was awful. It doesn't solve problems. It just ameliorates the symptoms short term, makes the problems worse and worse. What we're trying to do with this process is to try and work out the basic problems in the beginning to stop these things going bad.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, look, it's I use the word genius because it's a very, very important area of society, because again, mental health affects so many people, and the awareness that's being created today, and a lot of people are trying to work or trying to run a family household, and they're suffering from mental health issues, and and as you said, there's suicides, and it's just it's very sad.
there is keys to. Let's not even talk about mental illness and so forth. Let's talk about just being happy and healthy.
Yes.
There's a whole science about how this works, and this idea that you can be happy by simply having alcohol or a drug or Prozac or any of these things is a complete myth, because they're all short-term fixes. There's a study that was started in by Harvard University 8 decades ago, back in the 1930s, and they followed these young men all their lives, and also their children as well. And they found there's a whole series of behaviors that very strongly relate to somebody being happy and healthy in old age. And they're not smoking, obviously, to do with health, not drinking or drinking very, very little. Alcohol is a really big negative. Having a proper weight, it does certainly have an impact, both on mood and on health and on happiness. And you've got to talk about exercise. That's a huge one. People who exercise regularly are far more likely to be healthy into old age and happy.
Yes.
Then you look at resilience, the way you cope with problems, how positive you are about them, keeping an active mind.
Yes.
And very strongly, the most biggest one of all, having a strong social connection. A lot of people these days, they call them deaths of despair, but they're often deaths of loneliness. And being lonely can actually have as much effect on your life expectancy as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. So there's those factors there. They're all to do with long-term changes, doing things you don't necessarily feel like right now.
Yes.
But it's feeling better in the long run. Now, I would add other things in that too, which has been discovered by science. Things like spending time outside, having contact with nature. These are very proven ways.
Yes.
So, if you're sitting in front of the television or you're watching, you're on Facebook, and it's just depressing you. If you get up, go for a walk, get outside, go to a park, walk in no exercise, nature, and then you talk to people and you make friends and you deliberately reach out to people. There's a lot of things people can do that actually really do work long term. And I would be a very good example of following these principles without I won't be too boastful, but I'm 71. I feel I cannot remember feeling better than I was 30. I'm full of energy, physical energy. I mean, I sort of run for fun of it. I'm happy. I'm enthusiastic about life. I'm thinking of new ideas all the time. I know I'm going to be dead probably another 20, 25 years, but I'm having such a great time right now. And it's simple things like that. I get up in the morning, I lift weights, I run for half an hour, I have a cold shower, and then I walk for other things, and then I have a very active social life with my church and so forth, and I don't smoke and drink and stuff. And there's a real science to health and happiness, John. There really is. And people they want a short-term fix. They want to say, take a pill. Well, it doesn't work.
No.
Short-term make you feel better, long-term worse. Look at the things that takes effort right now to do.
Yes. I totally agree with you, Jim, and I still can't believe you're 71. To me, you're an inspiration. I hand on heart, but I credit to you. I went for a short holiday with friends, and I did what you said. Some of the things you said, which here I find it hard to do given my medical condition because I'm deemed disabled. Anyway, I did short walks every day, etc. I did swimming because it was a warm climate. I even, went across the road and bought whatever, said hello to people that I didn't know. And it's exactly what you just said. It makes a whole world of difference rather than, say, sitting in your room or my room, looking at the TV or on Facebook, as you said. Yeah, and as you said, taking a pill is not the fix. It definitely isn't the fix. But
there's other things.
Yeah.
There's other things too, John. Happiness is even beyond that. It's to do with money. Now, people think the more money you have, the happier you are. So I had this relentless urge to make more money.
Yes.
Past a very limited amount, money has surprisingly little impact on success, on happiness. Like, for example, studies of people who win lotteries.
Yes.
Now, you expect somebody who wins a $2 million prize in the lottery is going to be happier. Well, they are immediately. But what's interesting is that after about a year, their happiness gets back to the same stage as what they were.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest problems is that people have a wrong idea about money. They think that the way to be happy is to have more, like a bigger house or a better car or better clothes or more expensive holidays. This stuff really doesn't have much into it at all. And part of the reason is because it's all based on social comparison. You're actually competing with somebody else. There's always somebody richer than you.
Yes.
What actually tends to be work far better is experiences. Like if you go out with friends, for example, have a holiday with your family, spend time with you.
Yes.
That does tend to lift mood and happiness.
Yes.
In actual fact, the thing I've discovered has the biggest effect on happiness that you can do with money is to give it away. Quite bizarre. And I'm not talking, I mean, I'm a Christian, so we believe in doing such things, but even scientists with no religious thing, they say that is the one thing you can do with money that will give the biggest boost to your mood and your sense of happiness is to give it away, especially to a cause that you're involved with.
Yes.
Where you're contributing. That is a guaranteed mood enhancer.
Yes, and I'll give you credit for that because when I started university, I was a single dad. Long story short, anyway, I was sick. My late mother helped me. May she rest in peace. And I got rid of a whole lot of stuff in my house because I thought, give it to people and charities. And so anyway, $30,000 of stuff, you name it, whatever. I just let it go. Exactly what you said. And I had a sense of, I'd helped someone or people. That sense of, oh, I've achieved something. And till this day, I don't miss it at all. And exactly what you just said. In society, I think it's labelled that, we've got to have a triple story because he's got a double story. And I think it's just going the wrong way. Exactly as you've said it,
Right, too. People are so deluded. But there's a nice comparison that you could make. And I've got some book I've just finished reading, and for the second time, actually, called The Happiness Hypothesis. They compare two people. Here's Bob, who lives on the Gold Coast, let's say, in beautiful climate. Bob is 30 years old. He is well off. He's got engineering. He's a tech person, so forth. Got a great salary. He's got a really nice car. He's got a lot of really attractive girlfriends that he goes out with, and so forth. Okay. Mary, on the other hand, is 62 years old. Say she lives in a rain-sodden, cold area, like say Ballarat or Launceston or something like that.
Yeah.
She's overweight. And she basically, her whole social life is involved with her husband, with a local church. Now, she's on a minimum wage job, like a cashier or something. On the face of it, who's more likely to be happy? Most people would say Bob. But in actual fact, based on what I just told you, you'd more likely go for Mary.
Yes.
Because she's married, she's involved in the church, she's involved in helping other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me, I've got a bit of asthma.
Oh dear.
I put a fire in an enclosed fire at my farm in a room, and last weekend I was up there and I was stupid enough to leave the front glass thing open, and the smoke from the room has triggered asthma. So
oh dear,
entirely stupid, very stupid of me. It's getting better.
No, that's all right. We won't be too much longer too. I hope you feel better soon. But yeah, look, I as I say, I took a quick holiday with friends, and yeah, I just thought exactly what you just said. Go out in the street, go for a 2-minute walk, go into the local market, say hello to strangers, just even if you wave, get back to your room or whatever, and you feel like, you've climbed a huge mountain, if you know what I mean.
That's right. They've done exercises where they've actually got people to go out as homework, go out, greet a stranger, or do something nice for somebody else. And they found that is the thing that improves mood more than anything. It's not easy. It's quite embarrassing. I'm not great at it myself, but sometimes you make a point of it. Just saying nice. You see a woman with a baby, so you're a well-behaved kid, or that kind of relationship actually does boost your day. The interesting thing is too, doing something to help other people actually is a bigger mood enhancer than almost anything else you can do, even more than having somebody help you. You're just inclined that way. We live in such an atomized society. We're so separate from each other. To be part of is, and that's why I think believers in any religion, doesn't matter which one, actually tend to be happier. It's got a lot to do with community. that being part of a church or a mosque or a temple or whatever it is, you actually
Yes.
engage with other people in a fairly, deep way. I have
Yes.
a life group that I coordinate that we meet every second Monday, and we have a meal together and we discuss things from sermons and stuff, and then we pray together, and
Yeah.
it's a really wonderful experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I even spoke about that while I was overseas with some friends. I said, there's a sense of community here, and they've been living in Thailand. This was in Thailand. They said, yeah, that's exactly how we operate here. I said, yeah, I can just feel it. It's a sense of community where, even if you see each other for 10 minutes a day or 1 hour a week, you belong to, and then, you've got a sense of happiness, accomplishment. And as you said, if you help someone, whatever way you can, because a lot of people always think you've got to help someone by giving money to chat. You can give your
No.
time. You can, you can cook a meal for your neighbour, or you can just knock on the door and say, is everything okay? I remember, back in the 70s, my late grandfather with the big old European gardens, you'd have you give one lettuce here, a couple of tomatoes there, things like that. It doesn't take much, does it?
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
perfect example, actually. You see, it meets a
yeah,
whole lot of things. First of all, you've got a beautiful garden. What are you
yeah,
doing? You're outside, you're
yeah,
physically active, contact with nature. I find
yeah.
gardening very wonderful. Actually,
Oh,
tomorrow I'm going to the farm. I'm going to dig up this huge potato patch, about a
oh.
quarter acre. It's just fun.
Wow. That's
I'm
the
still
best
working on
life, Jim. That's the best life. You remind me of
it.
my late grandfather.
If you can take the produce of what you make and having
Yeah,
fun, and then you can give it other people, you strengthen social bonds.
yes.
You've got a whole lot of things going good at the same time.
Absolutely. And you remind me of my late grandfather and my father. They used to have the good old huge Italian vegetable patch. And as you said, you were outside nature, the birds chirping, cats,
Mm.
dogs. Your neighbours would say, "Oh, what are you?" It's just wonderful, isn't it? And then I always loved when I used to do my little lawn mowing round, which was the first time you don't remember, but and I used to finish the client's grass, and I used to love the smell. When you've cut the grass, and it's that
Yeah.
smell. I just used to love it. And exactly what you said, if you're outside with nature, it's the best feeling.
Yes, it is. We are built that way, John. We've
Yeah.
evolved for millions of years to be in contact with nature. It's a problem being shut up inside all the time and sitting down too much. It's
Yes.
just any activity is all. Not everybody can run for half an hour a day, but just
No.
get up and walk around, go
Yep.
outside, take a
Yep.
talk to
Yep.
people.
Yep.
It's not rocket science,
Yes.
but it's surprising how few people actually understand what's needed to live a great life.
Yeah, absolutely. I go and live in an apartment. And anyway, to cut a long story short, we've got in apartment blocks, you've got those bin chutes. But what I do, exactly what you just said, so I can go for a walk and I might bump into someone in the lift or whatever, I go right downstairs into the bins downstairs purposely so I can do a bit of exercise and say hello to someone rather than go next door, see no one, drop the bin and I've done nothing.
Yep.
Do you know?
Yeah. Good on you.
Yeah.
Well,
But
it's a science of everyday life. Even little things.
yeah,
Like, for example, I'm very fortunate to live next door to the office. Now, it's about a 5-minute walk, but I would never drive. No matter how the nighttime rain, doesn't matter. I would never, ever drive.
yes.
And even little things like, I'm going to put a cup of, I don't drink coffee, but I drink hot water and milk, call it wham.
Mm.
I turn the kettle on and then I go off somewhere, I walk somewhere else, do something else, and they come
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Or little things, putting the compost bin out, or taking the rubbish out the front, or changing the bed,
Exactly.
or physically active and getting involved and doing things with your life.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. No, absolutely, Jim. A very interesting topic. I want to thank you today, Jim, for your input. This may need to be continued because it's in my view, it's a very, very interesting and well needed area of discussion, and also, hopefully your research leads into the government space where I truly believe they need to do more in this space, because also these apartment complex, they're good, but everyone's just stuck inside, and
Yeah.
everyone's ordering their food and it gets delivered. You don't go to the shops, you don't go to the bank. It's just, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Look, the active everyday life is a lot of the best stuff. and people can, you know, they go to the gym, but they drive there. You know, could you walk? Could you? Anything that makes you more active is good. We have this habit of trying to make life easy, but it's not easy if you make it's too easy. Life needs a bit of a challenge, actually. I in cold exposure too. I don't think you'd be too comfortable.
Yes.
They've done experiments with rats where they actually expose them to cold when they're infants, and they actually grow up to have to be more resilient, to be tougher, to be healthier.
Yes.
So again, things like people do cold water swimming or cold showers in my case. That's such a thing. That's a very known mood enhancer. It's things that are uncomfortable short term, but you feel really good. I find exercising and having a cold shower afterwards, even in the middle of winter, you feel very, very good. Not necessarily when the water's coming on you, but afterwards. It's a great feeling.
Yeah.
And that persists.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at the AFL footballers. Where do they go? A lot of them, they go for it in the beach, the sea, natural, and go for a swim. So, it's all very interesting. Jim, I want to thank you again, as always, for your contribution, and I commend you in the space, the work you're doing, which is crucial. Hopefully, the government wakes up to this. And the breakthroughs that are hopefully coming through, the good work you're doing, and thanks to all the viewers. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll leave the links in the description for gyms.net. And I want to thank Mr. Jim Penman for his valuable time. We'll see you
actually also, John, if you want to put www.byhistory.org, which is my history website, they can have a look at that too.
Yes, absolutely. I was reading that the other night, and Jim, I hope we can continue this next time, because it's a very, very interesting and crucial area of society. So thank you very much.
Good to talk to you, John. Thanks.
Thank you.